So, this video was brought on after I saw 2 posts talking about the Mount Rushmores of Spider-Man and Batman villains. As we all know, Spider-Man and Batman have arguably the greatest rogues gallery in both Marvel and DC, respectively. So, these 2 posts made me laugh hysterically, and we're gonna actually talk about it because there is some stuff right to it, but a lot of it they got wrong. So for this video, we're gonna be talking about making an actual Mount Rushmore for Spider-Man and Batman villains. And this is the only time I'm going to do it because every other rogues gallery is pretty easy to make of. Like Superman. The 4 villains for your Mount Rushmore of supervillains right there is Luthor, Brainiac, General Zod, and Doomsday. Although I could make the argument that Bizarro would be there, but Doomsday for obvious reasons. So it's kind of like that. So let's talk about this, the initial post, starting with our first Mount Rushmore, Spider-Man. So who was on, in this post, the Spider-Man Mount Rushmore? Green Goblin, Kraven, Morlun, and Carnage. So, you can obviously see a problem here. Now, personally, you could make the argument Kraven can be here. Obviously, Green Goblin, of any of these villains, deserves to be on a Mount Rushmore. Obviously, the Green Goblin deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of Spider-Man villains. Hell, that's what you think. Kraven could also make the argument for, too. But Morlun and Carnage? First off, Morlun hasn't been an important villain in a long time. All he's been used for is more of his family, and that's more for Spider-Verse stuff. Morlun had one story, came back with... It was very much like a common thing with a lot of villains who get a lot of a big look. Where, in there, Morlun had one really good story, and then diminishing returns every time, even in the JMS run. So, yeah. And Carnage, awesome villain. But at the same time, when's the last time you saw Spider-Man fight Carnage? I mean, yeah, there was absolute carnage, but Peter and Cletus barely had any fight. If anything, Carnage has evolved to be in the Venom Rogues Gallery. I haven't seen Carnage in a main Spider-Man book in a long time. The closest he's gotten is to fighting Miles recently, and that's really it. So, yeah. I'm not saying these are bad villains, guys. If you like these villains, that's fine. But if we're doing a Mount Rushmore, we gotta be honest with ourselves here. So who would really be here? Let's tear it all down. Green Goblin does stay. Green Goblin is gonna stay, and you could make the argument for Kraven the Hunter. I wouldn't argue with you on that. But let's talk about who I would pick for the Mount Rushmore of Spider-Man villains. Starting off, obviously, Green Goblin. He deserves to be there. Next up, and this is what got me. This is what drove me to do that. To do this list. Dr. Octopus. If you don't think my boy Otto Octavius doesn't deserve to be on the Mount Rushmore of Spider-Man villains, I don't know what to tell you. There was a long time where Norman was dead and Otto was Peter's arch nemesis. If there was no Norman Osborn, it would be Doc Ock as Peter's arch nemesis. Hell, he even became Spider-Man for a while. Yeah, that's what made me laugh hysterically. I'm like, whoever thought of this? The idea of Morlun being more important of a villain than Doc fucking Ock is hysterical. Yeah, so Doc Ock deserves to be there. Now, as for another villain, this one might cause some controversy, and so will the other one, but we'll get to him in a moment. And that is Wilson Fisk, Kingpin. Now, I know what you're already saying in the comments, but isn't he more of a Daredevil villain? And yes, if we were doing a Daredevil Mount Rushmore, Kingpin would also be there. But the thing of it is that Fisk did start out as a Spider-Man villain. That's kind of his thing, is that he started out as a Spider-Man villain who migrated to being a Daredevil villain. But at the same time, Peter and Fisk really don't like each other. Fisk is still one of Spider-Man's best enemies. Yeah, he's just a big dude, and even Peter has shown, to Fisk, there's a reason why you don't come after me as much as you did before. Because you know, if I really wanted to, I'd kill you. That's why you like. I remember a comic where like Peter's like telling Fisk to his face, I've thought about why you don't come after me as much as you did before. Why you go after Matt so much? Because you're scared of me. Because if you push me the wrong way, I will fucking end you. But Fisk has done a lot of damage to Peter in his early career. He is the reason, if there was no Spider-Man, there'd be no Kingpin, and no Kingpin, no Daredevil villain, and arguably some of the best stories in comics. So, yeah, Kingpin deserves to be here, in my humble opinion. And finally, for our last guy, Venom. Now, I know what you're going to say, but Venom only has a few really good stories where he's a villain and then an anti-hero, and now is like a Spider-Man supporting character. This is true, but you have to understand, in the late 80s, early 90s, Venom was everywhere for a reason. There is a reason why, the Venom zeitgeist was kind of everywhere. And it would be remiss not to bring in Venom in any capacity, as, to consider him a Mount Rushmore villain. He's had, multiple adaptations in animation that have made him scarier and scarier. In animation, live action's much different story, and I do stress a lot. But, yeah, so Venom deserved to be on here. Like, it would be remiss not to have Venom on here. But again, if you wanted to say Kraven, or someone else, that's totally fine. I'm always open to see what your Mount Rushmores are and why they are. If you think a villain should be on here or not, that's totally fine. This is just my personal opinion. But yeah, Venom, Kingpin, Ock, Goblin. That's your Mount Rushmore for me for Spider-Man villains. Now let's get to the Batman Mount Rushmore of villains. Now, this one was another one that made me laugh because, okay, Joker. Obviously, Joker was on the Mount Rushmore. Bane, another villain you can make the argument for. And then the other two, Court of Owls and Deathstroke. Now, Court of Owls, good villain, but they only have one good story. That's fucking it. They have what you can't tell me otherwise. They have only one good story, and yeah, would I love to see the Court of Owls in like anime? They've gotten a video game, but would I like to see them in a live action movie? I mean, I know they did kind of show up in Gotham, but like I'm talking like would I want them to see them in the Batman? Absolutely, I would absolutely love to see them in the Batman universe or something of that degree. But yeah, they've got one good story, and that's it. They're like, I wouldn't even consider that. And Deathstroke? First off, the reason why Deathstroke is here because of Arkham Origins. Like, I can pinpoint why they put Deathstroke. And he's a Teen Titans, and if anything, he should be Nightwing's arch nemesis. I know they've built up like Blockbuster as his arch nemesis, along with this other Tom Taylor's other villain called Heartless. But Deathstroke, Slade Wilson is Dick's villain. That they stole Nightwing's villain and added to him all because of Arkham Origins, because he was one of the main boss fights in the game. And you could see, like, after Arkham Origins came out, then they started to put Deathstroke more with Batman. So yeah, Deathstroke, yeah, he's not a Batman. I've never considered him a Batman villain, in my opinion. He is the Teen Titans. More specifically, he is Nightwing's villain. He is Nightwing's arch nemesis. Anyway, so once again, we're going to tear it all down and keep only one. Obviously, the Joker. Obviously, the Joker is going to be on this list. And again, if you think you can make a good argument for Bane. You could really make a good argument for Bane being on this on the Mount Rushmore of villains too. So here's who I think should be on a Mount Rushmore of Batman villains. Joker. Joker's already there. For the next one, I am going to say Scarecrow. Scarecrow is one of Batman's first villains. He's also a villain who has done a lot of psychological damage to Batman that rivals the Joker. He has turned the city inside out more times than I can count, and is one of the most recognizable villains in comics, period. So Scarecrow deserves to be there. Scarecrow, in my opinion, deserves on the Mount Rushmore of Batman villains. Following that, it's Two-Face. Two-Face, even though there aren't a lot of good stories with Batman, the reason why I would put Two-Face as one of the Mount Rushmores for Batman villains is because he is the epitome of Batman, of one of Batman's greatest failures, being unable to save Harvey Dent. That's really it, is that he was unable to save Harvey, and yes, that's kind of every Two-Face story. It's like, I feel bad for you, Harvey, and it's my fault. But that's the crux of it, is that Batman is always feeling that guilt. Every time he sees, Two-Face's, face, he's reminded of that failure every time. So there you go, Two-Face. And finally, for our final member of this Batman Mount Rushmore is Ra's al Ghul. Why Ra's? Ra's has done probably some of the worst damage to Batman in ages. Like, it would rival the Joker. Do you see? Ra's represents Batman's, first off, he's an immortal. He's like, Batman has to fight this is one of those times where Batman has to fight a villain who is outside of his, regular, psycho stuff. He has to deal with, superpowered crazy people. Then you have a guy who's arguably just as intelligent as Batman. Oh, and he has an army of fucking ninjas at his disposal. And also, his daughter's really hot, and he uses her as sometimes bait for Batman. But there's also, and again, oh yeah, he's the grandfather of Batman's son, Robin. Yeah, Ra's al Ghul is you would be remiss not to have Ra's al Ghul in a Mount Rushmore of Batman villains. But again, it's same thing with Kraven, where you can make the argument for Bane, and I wouldn't oppose it. So there you go, guys. That is pretty much my Mount Rushmores for Spider-Man and Batman villains. You guys tell me in the comments below, if you could make a Mount Rushmore of these two great villains, two great heroes rogues galleries, what 4 villains would you put on a Mount Rushmore for these two characters in terms of villains? Just comment below, let me know, and once again, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.